breaking update from Southern University following the death of the student named Caleb Wilson. University leaders issued a statement in the last half hour condemning hazing and saying it will not be tolerated.
What's good, y'all? Welcome back to the channel. We have some new unsettling updates in the case of Caleb Wilson, the 20-year-old who tragically lost his life while pledging Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated at Southern University. If you are unfamiliar with this case, I will leave a card up top where you can see my previous video where we reported on the matter. You can come back here and join us for the new information. We have a lot to get through, guys, so let's jump in and see what's up.
And we do have a breaking update from Southern University following the death of the student named Caleb Wilson. University leaders issued a statement in the last half hour condemning hazing and saying it will not be tolerated. And this all stems from their internal investigation into Wilson's death. The WAFBI team also uncovered new information tied to this case. Sources with direct knowledge of the investigation tell the I-team Caleb Wilson was punched before he collapsed just last week. Those sources say the story that fraternity members told to police officers about his death happening at a Breck Park, well, that was fabricated. Sources said pledges with Omega Psi Phi were actually at a warehouse in Baton Rouge when Wilson was punched in the chest and collapsed during an unsanctioned fraternity ritual. He was later pronounced dead by doctors at an area hospital. The hospital contacted Baton Rouge police, which launched an investigation. This is a developing story, and we'll post any updates we get on WAFB.com. Southern University will be holding a candlelight vigil tomorrow evening for Caleb Wilson. That will begin at 5 on the lawn in front of Isaac Gregg's Band Hall.
Okay, so as we heard from the newscasting, the fraternity brothers did in fact lie about the events that led up to Caleb's death. I have a news article here that goes into further detail about the events that took place. It says, sources said pledges with Omega Psi Phi were actually at a warehouse in Baton Rouge when Wilson was punched in the chest and collapsed. He was later pronounced dead by doctors at an area hospital. There were 9 pledges in a line during an unsanctioned fraternity ritual, and each of one was allegedly forced to take blows to the chest, the sources said. When Wilson was hit, sources with knowledge of the event said he reportedly collapsed to the ground and began having a seizure at the warehouse. Wilson was brought to Baton Rouge General on a blue bonnet where he was pronounced dead. Following the fraternity brothers bringing Wilson to the hospital, they allegedly gathered at an undisclosed location to discuss the events at an undisclosed location to discuss the events of the evening. Sources with direct knowledge of the investigation said that's where the story was created that Wilson collapsed at a park. Those sources said none of the students participating in the fraternity ritual were ever at a park. Hospital staff contacted police about the death, launching an investigation by the Baton Rouge Police Department. Here you have another article that says police are now looking into a warehouse building that is assumed to be the location of the alleged hazing. A portion of the space in the warehouse is rented by East Baton Rouge Councilman Cleve Dunn Jr. Dunn tells WDSU the leaseholder is a member of Omega Psi Phi fraternity and did not make him aware of the details until it was reported. According to Dunn, he had no involvement, is not a member of the fraternity, and has no control over who has access to the building. So as of this morning, March 7th, 2025, there has been reports of an arrest made in this case, as well as a press conference that was held by the New Orleans Police Department, answering questions about the case and where things are going to go from here. So I'm going to insert both of those clips, and then we'll come back to discuss.
All right, let's get you going here, folks. This morning, this man waking up behind bars. Baton Rouge police say Caleb McCray has been arrested now in connection to the alleged hazing death of 20-year-old Southern student Caleb Wilson. According to investigators, McCray is a former Southern student himself, member of the Omega Phi Psi fraternity. He's facing charges of criminal hazing and manslaughter. Baton Rouge police say there will be a news conference about the investigation 10:30 this morning. You'll be able to watch it right here on WAFB. Also bringing you updates online as well. We're told officials will be considering charging possibly at least 3 people who were present that night, so more arrests could follow.
The university will continue to fully and actively cooperate with law enforcement as this case moves forward. Our internal investigation and code of conduct processes adjudicating these events are ongoing. The Baton Rouge campus chapter of the Omega Psi Phi fraternity has been ordered to cease all activities. As I just noted, student code of conduct Judiciary proceedings are underway. Anyone and any student organization found to be in violation will face prompt disciplinary action. In addition, every campus Greek organization is being informed that no additional membership intake can occur for at minimum the remainder of the academic year. We place the quality of the experience our students have on our campus, and we have high standards for that. And we intend to preserve those standards and act expeditiously to resolve this matter such that nothing like this happens again in the future. Thank you.
All right, you can ask your questions.
I have a question. Chris Underwood with Channel 9. Can you guys say how many additional people could potentially be arrested? We're hearing conflicting reports. As many as 3 individuals, possibly more. Do you guys have a number of how many people are cooperating?
Yeah, so let me first say I too have seen a lot of conflicting reports out there, none of which are coming from the Baton Rouge Police Department, so please get all of your news straight from us and wait for our official statements. Right now, we have 2 additional suspects that we are drawing up warrants for and working with their attorneys to turn themselves in later today. As that happens, we will update everyone on those arrests as well. But right now, this is still an ongoing investigation. There may be more suspects, but right now we have 2 that we are drawing up warrants for.
Can you talk about the cooperation? You said you guys interviewed a number of individuals. Were those individuals pledges, or were they actually the individuals doing the hazing?
So I'm not going to give any information about the people that we interviewed, but the people that we did interview led us to this point where we were able to get the information to make these arrests.
Chris Joseph with Fox 8 9 New Orleans. Can you speak about decision-making on the charges, perhaps why these aren't second-degree murder charges?
Yeah, so good question. In the state of Louisiana, we have 5 degrees of homicide. We have first-degree murder, first-degree homicide, second-degree homicide, manslaughter, negligent homicide, and vehicular homicide. In this case, manslaughter is the most appropriate charge in the state of Louisiana, being that there is no proof that we could come up with a specific intent to kill, but that the death was caused in direct relation to another felony that was being committed during that death, and that felony being the act of criminal hazing.
Related to those 2 other potential suspects, or maybe anybody else, do we have any reason to believe more than one individual laid hands on Wilson during the incident?
All of that is still pending some more questions that are being happened. Like I said, we've done over a dozen interviews. More are coming as we continue to interview people. We might have some more information. We might have further charges on further people.
Kind of a follow-up. Do we know how many people were at the event?
We do, but we're not ready to release that right now.
Anybody else have a question?
Could you elaborate on how long the delay from the original incident to Caleb actually arriving in the hospital was?
Yeah, so that's all part of our investigation and has gone into why we the charges that we've done. Don't have exact timeline that we're ready to release as far as when Caleb first collapsed at this warehouse and then when he arrived at the hospital. All of that is still kind of pending some questions that we're trying to follow up on. What I can say is that at no time did anyone call 911, attempt to call 911, or try to summon an ambulance to the warehouse to give him medical aid.
And the second thing, could we know, is there any implication for Todd Smith, the part owner of the warehouse, for the incident?
Not right now. Yes, ma'am.
Are there any charges coming for the individuals that made up the story about the park?
So again, all of that is kind of in investigation process. There is no specific statute for lying, right? There's some things that we're looking at as far as maybe obstruction or other things, but that's still things that we're working through as we're gathering some more evidence and continue to investigate and ask questions.
How many people can you say might face charges for that?
I'm not sure right now.
Has there been a warrant already put out to search the warehouse, and has there been any surveillance footage on you to look at? Or?
Yeah, so we one of the warrants that we did conduct was at the warehouse, and this was a week ago, more than a week ago, before anybody else really knew that the warehouse even existed. We had already performed a search warrant and tried and gathered evidence there. What evidence we gathered, again, I'm not ready to discuss, but we were able to get some evidence at the warehouse.
2 questions. First question. I'm Andre Shapiro with Unfiltered with Karen.
Yes, sir.
First question. What's your message to the other college students out there?
Yeah, so this is a very serious incident, very serious law that I think is a good law for criminal hazing that people need to make sure that they're paying attention to. You can hear just from the administrative point of view, from Southern's leadership, and LSU would have the same kind of statements, but from our law enforcement side, we are going to enforce these laws whenever they're applicable and whenever it comes to our attention. And it is a felony charge.
Second is real quick. Taylor Moore, how does Max Gruber Act help in this case?
So I mean, it's one that we're going to consider because in the Max Gruber law, which is hazing, so it incorporates not only misdemeanor hazing, act of regular hazing, but also when hazing involves a great bodily injury or death, there is a felony component to hazing, and it carries up to 5 years. So that is a potential. However, in this case, at this point, at least one defendant was charged with misdemeanor hazing plus the felony manslaughter. Felony manslaughter is whenever a direct battery or a misdemeanor against the person is committed, and because of that someone dies, that is a punch, and someone dies, it carries up to 40 years. There's also the potential of a negligent homicide. So it really depends on how the facts play out. And so in this case, the potential would be, again, it's ongoing. And thanks again to the cooperation of Baton Rouge Police, but particularly to Southern University. I've been through a lot of hazing cases before, and I think I've probably had 40 phone calls with Chancellor Pierre in their office providing information to us to give to the police department. That's a very good cooperation. So it's possible, with all the other questions that you guys have asked, this case could go to the grand jury just to see what other things are out there. How did it get formed? Is this the first time it's ever happened? Why at this location, who knew what, who reported as quickly as they can. There are several penalties in the Max Groover violation for the institutions as well, not necessarily the Southern University, but the corporate chapter. So there are a lot of things that are possibilities. It just depends on who comes forward and what information that we're provided and able to prove. So that's our possibility.
One last question.
Question for Dr. Shields, if possible. I know there's a student judiciary process, but are any of these students possibly facing expulsion?
Certainly that is a possible outcome, but we need to follow our due process rights, give the students notice that they're being accused of being outside of the code of conduct regulations, and we want to follow those rules, regulations, and due process. They have every right to that. So yes, the expulsion is one of the things that could happen. Also, that's a possibility for the Greek organization.
To be kicked off campus, or not on campus?
Right.
And can you say how many students are currently being involved in that judiciary process?
It's too soon to identify how many. We're still conducting our own investigations and receiving more information on a regular basis.
Thank you.
Thank you all very much.
Y'all, there are a lot of hands involved in the untimely death of Caleb Wilson. And as a member of the D9, I'm here to let you guys know that none of these events that we're hearing about are uncommon. It is not uncommon that when you are running set, that you are using whoever's house, backyard, warehouse, whatever is available for the night. Any place that you all can go where you'll be undetected is where set will be held that night. So it does not surprise me that the location was actually leased by a member of the organization. Happens all the time. Also, we're hearing from social media, from people who are close to the case, that allegedly the members of the chapter took Caleb to a second location, changed him out of his set clothes, put him in some athletic clothes before dubbing him off at the hospital and going to that undisclosed location to concoct their story, which is so sickening because at the end of the day, the people at the hospital would have had no idea that what he was wearing was set clothes anyway. And putting him in gym clothes, like who the fuck is working out at 3 o'clock in the morning? Like it just, you can tell that this was plans concocted by some kids at the end of the day. And it is so sickening that they did not render him CPR to help him regain consciousness. Precious minutes. I'm a healthcare worker. Every minute, every second counts when you're unconscious. That lack of oxygen really can do you in when you're unconscious and not breathing. This situation should have never gotten to this point. I think we all recognize that. And it is just so sad that things got this far. In researching the case, I saw a lot of members of Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated on TikTok really trying to absolve the organization of the responsibility of Caleb's death, saying, oh, I can't speak much on it because it wasn't my chapter, or we don't know all the information, or we need to give everybody grace because nobody went into it thinking this would happen. When, in all actuality, they should have been condemning the acts of this chapter. We can all say that we're a non-hazing organization till the cows come home, but we know the real. We know what goes on when bringing new lines into our chapters. And we all know once you cross those burning sands and you receive those letters on your chest, anything that goes on in your organization is your business. And it is just so irresponsible because at the end of the day, we are all one line away from something tragic happening. We are all one pledge away from getting our chapters snatched. Okay? Because although we think what we're doing is possibly harmless, we don't know how any of these pledges can react. Something as simple kind of running laps can cause somebody to collapse and lose their lives. So it doesn't always have to be something as extreme as taking blows to the chest. So we all need to realize that and take inventory on how we're going to be bringing in new members into our organizations in the future. We do have some new information as of this morning, March 7th, that an arrest has in fact been made in this case. And the person responsible for administering the devastating blow to Caleb Wilson actually is an alumni of Southern University as well as a past member of the undergraduate chapter. This too is not an unfamiliar practice. A lot of the times when you're bringing in new lines, old heads will come through, see the prospective members, and do whatever it is that the dean and ADP will allow them to do. So this is not an unfamiliar practice as well, and it's just so unfortunate that this past member is responsible for taking his life, possibly costing the entire chapter their charter. I am happy that the police is taking this case seriously and that arrests have been made. I hope they continue to investigate this until all information is uncovered and every party responsible is held accountable. This is all just so senseless, y'all. And, as I said before, as a member of the D9, this case really hits home for me. And I really do hope that some changes can be made moving forward. One, this chapter, done. Snatch this chapter, snatch their charter. They don't deserve any more chances to operate on this campus. And I 100% agree with a moratorium needing to happen. We have to shut down shop and get to the bottom of this. We have to find a way to break free of this paper versus made culture, because it's really ruining our organizations and getting us further and further from what our founders had in mind when they made our prestigious organizations. We already see from the press conference, the university is taking steps to remedy the situation. They've canceled all organization activity as well as all of the other fraternity and sororities on campus from bringing forth any new members for at least the remainder of the semester. So we can see this is getting taken very seriously. This case is definitely going to set a precedent going forward, not only in NPHC, but I'm pretty sure the other councils as well, Panhellenic Council, IFC. This is definitely going to set a precedent going forward. I am very interested to see where things go from here. Again, my heart does go out to Caleb Wilson, his family, his fellow Human Jukebox members, and just all who loved him. And I do hope that justice is served in this situation. So if there are any new developments in this case, I will be sure to come back and report on them. But until then, if you appreciate this type of content, please go ahead and like and subscribe. Feel free to hit my notification bell so you're notified anytime I upload a video. I'll see you next time. Bye.